When storing media files, such as images or videos, a common question is how best to do this with your MongoDB database. Hi, I'm Tim, and today we're going to build a Node.js API that will allow you to store your media files in Azure Blob Storage, while using MongoDB to store a reference to that media, along with any associated metadata, allowing you to leverage the best of both technologies. For this tutorial, there's a few things you need already. So first is Node.js downloaded on your machine. Next is going to be a MongoDB cluster setup. And lastly, it's going to be an Azure storage account with an active subscription. Once you have all that, you're ready to get started. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pop up to the top on our Azure portal, and we're going to type in storage. Now make sure you choose storage accounts and not storage accounts classic. Storage accounts classic doesn't have all the features we need for this tutorial. So we'll go into storage accounts, we're going to hit create. And here we're just going to select our subscription and resource group, so these are fine for me, and we're going to give our account a name. So this name has to be unique, so silly little blob 123. It can be letters and numbers, and everything here looks fine. I'm just going to change the redundancy to the low cost option. And we're going to go into advanced. Now from here we're fine to accept the default options. The thing to pay attention to is for network, I'm going to choose enable public access from all networks. Now this keeps it entirely open. It allows us to bypass setting up access rules and is just easier for this tutorial. For production, you might want to look into deciding who can access your API. Everything else here, we're fine accepting the defaults. And we're just going to scroll to the bottom, and when it all looks good, we're going to hit create. Now this will take a moment to deploy. I'm going to pop back to you when everything's ready. Now that everything's set up, we're just going to go to resource. So what we need to do is we need to set up container. So you can think of a container like a directory in a file system used for organizing the blobs. You can have as many containers as you need in your storage account, and each container can hold numerous blobs. So to do this, we're just going to go to the left, we're going to hit containers, and we're going to hit create. Now we just need to give our container a name, we'll just call it blobby, and create. So now that we have that created, we just need to get our SAS, so our shared access signature. This provides detailed control over the ways your client can access your data. So we'll pop back here to overview. From the left, we're going to go to shared access signature. We're going to hit object, and everything else we're absolutely fine taking the defaults, and we're just going to hit generate. So what you need to copy down is this one here, the second one, SAS token. We'll save that to clipboard, and we're going to need it later when we're trying to access our blob from our application. Now that we have our Azure account set up, we have MongoDB set up, we're going to start with our application. So to initialize everything, you're going to go to your terminal, and you're going to type npm install, and it's going to be -- save, and we're going to go at Azure /storage -blob, and then it's going to be MongoDB and .env. So if we run this command here, and we'll let that install. So Azure storage blob package is for interacting with Azure Blob Storage, MongoDB for the MongoDB operations, and .env is for loading our environment variables. We have everything going there. So you'll see on the left side, we have our new package.json, and we also have our .env file. So our .env is we're going to load our connection strings. So first things first, we'll get our MongoDB connection string. So if you go over to your MongoDB cluster, you hit connect, drivers, and here you'll see your connection string. So we'll just hit copy, and the one thing we'll need to change is the password. So if we go back to our application, we'll copy this in, and then we'll just change our password. Now, the next thing we'll need is we'll need our SAS token that we generated earlier. So popping back to your Azure account, you're going to go back, everything is still here, and we'll just get our connection string. So that's our SAS token. If we hit copy on this, we'll paste this in. And then our account name and our container name that we set up earlier. So our account name, if you remember, is silly little blob 123. Just going to double check that's correct. And then our container name, you'll remember, is blobby. Perfect. So we have everything here, and we're going to pop over to our app. So let's import our dependencies. So if we hit import from HTTP, or apologies, import HTTP from HTTP, perfect. Next we're going to import our blob service client. So import and this is blob service client from Azure /storage. Perfect. We're going to get our Mongo client. So import Mongo client. Import Mongo client. Perfect, from MongoDB. And then lastly, we're just going to import .env config so we can access our environment variables. So that's just .env /config. Perfect. Now, next steps here is to set up our environment variables. So if we go const, and we'll get our MongoDB URI, and that is equals to process.env.mongodb _URI. Perfect. Now we need to get our account name, const account name, and that's equal process.env.account _name. Perfect. And then our SAS token. So const SAS token equals process.env.SAS _token. And then lastly, our container name. So const container name equals process.env.container name. Perfect. So that's all our environment variables loaded in. And next thing to set up is establishing our connection with Azure Blob Storage. So to do this, we're going to need our blob service client and our container client. So our const blob service client we'll get by using this here. So that is equal to new blob service client. And then in here, we're going to have to put in a connection. So that is tick, and it's HTTPS. And then it's / our account name. And then it's going to be .blob.core.windows.net. And then / and that's going to be our SAS token. Perfect. So that's that there. And then next thing is going to be our container client. So that's just const container client equals blob service client dot get container class. And then just our container name. Now, that's all we'll need to connect to our blob service account. Next is just to connect to our MongoDB. So to connect to our MongoDB account, it's just const client, and then it's equals new Mongo client, and then our Mongo URI. And then it's just client.connect. Perfect. So that's everything we need to connect to the both of those, and we'll look at uploading our file next. So first things first, we need to establish somewhere to make our API calls. So we're going to create a HTTP server. So const server, and we'll use http.createServer. And then we'll just put in handle image upload. So this just means every time our server is called, it's going to call the function handle image upload. Now, we're going to decide what port it goes on. So I'm just going to go const and port equals 3000. I'm going to fix this quick typo here. And next we're just going to set our server to listen. So server.listen, and then it's port and our arrow function here. Perfect. And once this is running, we're going to pop in console log, and then we'll just say what port it's listening on. So server, listening, and then our port. Perfect. So now our server is set up to listen. And next we're going to create that handle image upload function. So this function is designed to process HTTP post requests to the /API upload endpoint, handling the uploading of an image and storing its associated metadata. So we're going to create this function. This function will call upon a couple of helper functions to achieve this. We'll break down how they work as well just after we have all this written. So we'll start with an asynchronous function. And that's handle image upload. So handle image upload will take in the parameters. Now at the top of this function, we're going to set the header for the response. So set header, and that's going to be content type, and we're just going to set that to be JSON. So content hyphen type, and then it's going to be application JSON. Application /JSON. Perfect. Now, replace these with singles, and everything looks good there. Next, we're just going to contain all of our logic inside an if-else statement. So this if-else statement will just make sure it's going to the right endpoint and that it is in fact a post request. So if, and we'll check that it is going to the right URL first. So URL, and this will be our API /upload. So /API /upload. Make sure it's the correct destination. And then on top of this, we're going to check that the method is in fact post. Perfect. Now the actual logic will go in here, and then the else statement will just write that it went to an incorrect endpoint. So we'll write that first, and that's just going to be a response dot write head, and that's going to be 404, and then we'll just return a response. So dot end, and that's going to be JSON dot stringify, and then we'll just write error not found. That seems plenty informative. Perfect. Now back to our if statement. So what this will do is it will extract the metadata from the headers. It will upload the image to Azure Blob Storage as a stream, and it will store the metadata in MongoDB. So all of this will be inside of a try catch block. And inside our try, it's going to be const, and we're going to extract that metadata. So that's going to be our file name. It's going to be our caption and our file type. So that seems like plenty of information to store. And we're just going to go and we're going to call upon a function that we'll call extract metadata. And we'll create that later. So extract metadata, and we'll have to hand in the headers to that one. So that's perfect. Now, that's how we get our metadata. Next is to upload the image. So we're going to go const, and we'll create an image URL to store in our MongoDB. So we'll call that image URL. And what this will do is it will call upon another helper function that we'll just call await upload image streamed. So this will just upload it as a stream of bits. So because it's being stored in binaries, it will take care of that asynchronously. So we'll call that file name. And then just the request. Perfect. And then last thing we need to do is we need to actually store our metadata in MongoDB. So what this will be is this will be await, and we'll call this one store metadata. So another helper function will set up, and this will take in the file name. It will take in the caption, the file type, and the image URL that we've generated from storing it in that blob storage. Perfect. Now, last thing to do is just to return a positive response. So that's res.writeHead, and this will be a 201. Everything went well. And we'll just give some JSON to that as well, give a message. So res.end, and we'll go JSON.stringify, and we'll just give a message that says go message, and in this we can just go image uploaded, metadata stored. Perfect, just as a string. I think that should be plenty. Now, we'll also write a catch for the error, so we'll just console log that error if anything does come up, and that will just be error. Everything's good there, and then we'll give a error response as well. So res.writeHead. Now this will be a 500, and in this we'll just give an error message as well. JSON.end, or JSON.stringify, and we'll write error, and this will be a server error. Perfect. Now, we have everything set up in this function that we need. All that's left to do is to actually write these helper functions. So now that we have our main function written, it's time to handle our helper functions. So we'll start with the first one, extract metadata. So that's just going to be another asynchronous function. And what we're going to do for this one is we're going to pass in the headers. So this will assign values to our metadata that we'll store in MongoDB. So there's going to be a couple steps to this, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the content type. Now this will be passed in straight away, so we'll just go equals headers, and we'll describe this as constant type, or content type. Now content type will describe if it's an image, if it's a video, and it will also give the file type. Now, in order to extract that to store in our database, we're going to go const file type equals, and we'll go content type, and we're going to split this at the /. So when we're actually passing in our post request, you'll be able to see where this is actually written and where we assign this value, but it's going to be the second value in the array that we get out of that, so the value at position 1. Now, after our file type, we have our const disposition, so that's our content disposition. Now what we'll do in this is we'll assign a name to the file that we're passing in. We'll give information as to how we expect the server to handle it. So in our case, it will be an attachment, so that expects the server to download it. But depending on the application, you might ask it to save it, but that's where the description for it will go here. And we're just going to go equals headers. And we're going to go content. We're going to pop all this in there, and we're going to go content hyphen disposition. Perfect. Now, for this example, we're going to pass in a caption. So depending on your application, you might want different fields, but the caption will just be there to describe the actual image or video being stored. And we're going to keep that in headers. We're going to say X image caption. And if no caption is provided, we'll just store that as a string. And we'll say no caption provided. Perfect. Now, after this, we just have two more, so we're going to have our const matches. Now, in this, what we're doing is we're looking for a file name equals some file name. That's how we'll assign the name to what we're storing in our database. This line uses regular expression to find a file name in the content disposition string. So the regex is / file name, and then equals quote, and we're going to go bracket, we'll go square bracket, upper, and then another single quote, a square bracket again, we're going to go plus, and then close your brackets. After that, it's / it's I to make it case insensitive, and then we're going to go exec, and we're going to run this on content disposition. And that is everything we need here. So now that we've extracted the file name from the curl, or from the post request we pass in, Last thing we need to do is we need to actually get the file name from that. So we're going to go const file name, and we're going to go equals. We'll make sure that's uppercase. So we'll go equals matches, and we're just going to check to see if that regular expression actually matched. And if it did, we'll take the value that it comes from that will be stored in the second place of the array. So that's .1. And if not, we'll just generate an automatic name for the file. And we'll do that by getting we'll just use the date right now. So that will be image. And then we'll say date.now. And then we'll also need to assign the file type. So that will be what we got earlier. So it's just file type. In curly braces again. Perfect. And that's our extract metadata function done. So next after that, what we need to do is we need to get the upload image stream. So I'll write that here, and we'll just go just below it. So for our next function, it's upload image streamed. And you'll see what we're going to be doing here is we're going to return an image URL as well. Of course, I almost forgot. We need to actually return our values. So that's just going to be return. And in here, we're going to return our file name. We're going to return our caption. And we're going to return our file type. Perfect. So now that we have that done, we can get started on our next function. So we're going to create our function async function. And we'll call this upload image stream. And for this, we're going to pass in our blob name and our data stream. Perfect. Now, we'll scroll down to give a bit of room on the screen. So in this, what we need first is we need our blob client. So we're just going to go const blob client. And this will be a new value. And we're going to create this using the container client.get. So .get and block blob client. And then this is where we need our blob name. So this create a client for our blob. Now that we have that, what we can do next is we can upload a stream. So we're just going to go await. And then we're going to go blob client. And with this, we'll use the upload stream. And we'll pass in our data stream. Now, what we need to do just for our metadata is we need to return our blob client URL. So this is just what we'll store in our MongoDB database. So if we go return blob client and URL, now we can access what's stored in our blob at this location. Perfect. So we have our extract metadata, we have our upload stream. Our last thing we just need is we need our store metadata. So this is a function that will store our metadata in our MongoDB database. So if we just go async function and store metadata. Perfect. And for this, what we need to do is we need to pass in the name of what we're storing, the caption, the file type, and the image URL that we just got from our blob. So name, caption, file type, and image URL. Now again, if you're following along with this tutorial, you may want to use the same metadata fields as I'm using, but for your own applications, you can store whatever data you need. So for this, we're just going to go const collection, and we'll use client.db. We're going to use the tutorial DB. So this is just one that I have in my database, and the collection metadata. So just the database I want to use and the collection I want to use. Now, if this database and this collection doesn't already exist, there is no issue. MongoDB will automatically create it once you try to insert into that collection or database. And what we need to do is we just need to actually insert into that. So that's await collection. And we're going to go insert one. And we're going to actually store the data. So we're just going to go name, caption, file type, and then lastly, the image URL. Perfect. So if you followed along, you should have everything you need to actually run this application. We're going to get to testing now. Okay, now before we can actually run our application, there are a few errors we need to correct in it. So what we'll do is we'll start at the top of the application, and you'll see here when I was defining the container client, I accidentally called it getContainerClass. That should be getContainerClient. Below that, we need for our Mongo client, we need to have that be a method, so just add the brackets at the end of that. And underneath all of this, we need to go and we need to make sure that for the extract metadata, we're actually passing in the headers. So that's rec.headers. And after that, we just need to make sure that all of our variables are named correctly. So for file name, it should be file and then name with a capital N. So everything is camel case, everything is named correctly. The last thing we need to do is we need to make sure our extract metadata is asynchronous. So that is just await, and we can save everything there and run our application. So we're just going to pop down to the terminal and we're going to type node, then app.mjs, and perfect. So our server is listing on port 3000. So if we go back to our terminal, and we're just going to run our command that we had from earlier, and you'll see perfect. Okay, so message and its image uploaded, metadata stored. We're just going to have a look at that in our blob and in our MongoDB collection. So first of all, we'll refresh this. We have MongoDB as webscale.png. And if we go into, the best way to look at that is usually just edit. We can see our image is a lovely screenshot of a teddy with MongoDB is web scale. And if we want to go to our metadata, again, we'll refresh our collection as well. And we look at this, perfect. So we have the name, we have the caption, we have the file type and the URL. Through this tutorial, we demonstrated how to build a Node.js API to seamlessly interact with MongoDB and Azure Blob Storage to effectively store your media files. Utilizing the powerful capabilities of both technologies, developers can build applications such as social media apps or content management systems. If you liked this video or found it useful, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming tutorials. And if you want to learn more about MongoDB, visit our YouTube channel or our Developer Center.